Welcome back to the Sean Trey Show. Today I have a really interesting guest here with me today. Now, would you like to introduce yourself and tell people who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Amy Martin, and I'm a singer-songwriter, and I live in Boulder, Colorado. As of recently, I just moved across the country this past summer from Harrisonburg, Virginia, where I was a musician out there as well.
Very cool. Now, what brought you to Colorado?
Yeah, a few things. I think, I was born in Maryland, but lived in Virginia since I was 7 years old. So I ended up going to college there. I started my first band there, toured a lot of the East Coast with my band there during college. And so I just really felt like after 20 years of being in Virginia and engrossing myself in that music scene and those venues, and it was just kind of time for a new scene.
Nice.
Particularly like I'm also, a queer person. And so it was important for me to find somewhere that I felt like, had a bit more opportunity for somebody like me within the music industry.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's like, I think finding one of the things I'm looking at right now, my wife and I are looking at long-term where we would like to kind of be, because we have a 5-year-old daughter. My wife is a singer here in Vietnam. She was a first winner of Vietnam Idol, and wow. she's good. But one of her challenges is that the style of music she likes to sing, people don't like it here. And so, it's like she's a fish out of water because she loves jazz. She loves Broadway. She loves stuff like that. And they're like, they're very much into Vietnamese pop is kind of a derivative of K-pop, and it's just not what she sings.
Yeah.
And so it's this idea of, where can you find your community is such a powerful thing. I highly respect that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and Harrisonburg is and will always be, my community. Like those are the folks. I just got word that Chance McCoy from Old Crow Medicine Show is going to be producing my album in April. Yeah. And so I'm raising money for that right now. I'm really excited to use his services. It's going to have, he's a Grammy Award winner. We're going to use him as a studio musician plus others. We're going to have full band production. And it's going to take place in West Virginia, which is kind of cool because I'm from Virginia. And so it's like I almost had to leave the Appalachians to come back to record this album, and now I'm going to be within driving distance of all of my music community there. And so I think there's this like beauty about, me having like taken that step, like, whoa, Amy is leaving Harrisonburg. That's crazy. You know what I mean? Like Amy and Harrisonburg are synonymous. Yeah. And then, all of a sudden, I'm gone for less than 6 months. I'm like, oh, hey guys, I actually found some opportunity out here and it's bringing me back. So that's really cool.
Did you ever read the Hobbit when you were younger?
Yes. Okay. Yes. And I've seen the movies.
Yeah. And the original title for the Hobbit was actually There and Back Again. And the idea of like, sometimes you have to leave where you're at to grow and come back and be able to kind of step into that place in a new way. And so, yeah,
absolutely. And I think, I went back and I visited in August, and, like I said, those are my community. They're the ones that are like really helping me raise money for my album. I mean, the folks that have been telling me for years since I was, 12, you need to go to Nashville, and all this stuff. So, I mean, there's that like hometown support that is invaluable, that I appreciate. But you're right. I think that there comes a time where when you discover who you are, and really COVID helped figure that out for me, like it kind of really helped me cut the umbilical cord in some ways to the Harrisonburg community. And particularly me as an artist, I've always been passionate about being a vocalist. It's really the only thing I've ever wanted to do. I managed to find something I enjoyed in college, but it was tough. And, and so, yeah, I mean, that's what Sweet Virginia is all about. My latest single that I put out before I moved out here, I didn't even know I was writing it about Virginia, but I just knew, I don't know, I was just starting to wake up in like heartbreak every day. Like I just felt like square peg, round hole. And I felt like I was finally at a point in my life where I wouldn't be running if I made the move now. And so I did it. I took advantage of like the 3 months or whatever that we had after the first quarantine and before things got real again, and used it to get over here to Boulder and Boulder, Denver area, and it's phenomenal.
That's awesome. It's really special because that round peg in a square hole. I think that so many people run into situations like that in their life, whatever they might be. It's like one of the things that I find that I think is the most important thing for people to do in their creative life is to find their tribe. You have to find your community, and sometimes it takes journeying across the world to find that, That's
Right.
what it took for me. I had to move all the way around to Southeast Asia to find my creative, path, and it was what was right. But it was also kind of what I felt like the universe was pulling me that way. Like I couldn't have said no if I wanted to.
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting. That's how I'm feeling. I've been using the term momentum, but there's just been this. So I've never been the new girl, right? And particularly within music, and so moving from Harrisonburg to Denver area and starting over as a female musician, solo artist who just went from like a 7-person band to now her, and I'm an Americana. I say Americana, but it's because I am so influenced by so many other genres, jazz and blues and all of these. I come together, rock, gospel, Motown, you name it. I come together, and those are heavily influenced. A lot of female powerhouse vocalists. And so, I don't know what Denver's like, and so I went from, just kind of booking wherever within reason to, can I please play at your coffee shop, and that was a really cool experience this summer. And the momentum behind my music has been, I think I needed that more than I ever knew, to know that people that don't know me when they hear my music are just as excited, if not more excited than the folks that have heard it their whole lives. So I think that's pretty cool. That's been a really cool experience.
It's very cool. Now, how let's take it back. How did you get into music? What were your foundations of music?
Yeah. It's a big question. I think, I remember my mom is really musical. She,
Nice.
an accountant during the day, but growing up, she was a DJ karaoke at night. And
Hold up. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, she's so cool. And so now, she lived in Maryland. We had split custody. So I was with her every other weekend. And so at night, that's how I would spend time with my mom it was a 3.5-hour drive from Maryland to Virginia. And so we would spend most of our time together in the car to pick me up and to drop me off and or at the karaoke spots. So really, I was engrossed in this. That's
awesome.
Sing, perform. And
yeah.
I remember being like 6 years old and hearing Martina McBride on the radio for the first time. And it was the first time I think I'd ever heard a vocalist that, I don't know, just as a child, got me. And so I think about then, it was my first time on stage singing karaoke with my mom, to where I sang by myself. And she only was able to do that because she had the guy cut her mic. So I would keep singing and I'm the only one amplified. But after that moment, it brought the house down and I was so excited. I love performing. And so
that's awesome.
And then, my grandmother, my mom's mom, she introduced me to like Patsy Cline, classic country.
Very cool.
My dad is very into like the Allman Brothers and like, Journey and like, so I grew up with it all.
That's awesome.
I remember being in high school and like pulling into whipping into my driveway and I'm blaring music and it's like Frank Sinatra and my dad's like, this is not normal, by the way. So I really just have always had an affinity to lyricism.
That's awesome.
And the emotion songs portray. I think one thing my mom taught me was, I was singing a song of karaoke because we used to do it at her house too, because she had an extra one. We would just be singing all the time. And I remember, I would sing and listen to Martina McBride and like rewind it and play it back. Like that's all I did is like I just recorded myself and critiqued myself in in a hopeful way, as a child. But I just spent like all my time just singing and listening back. And my mom taught me, I feel like, I don't know if she knew this or not, but it was a big lesson, is I was like 13 or something, and I was singing a song on karaoke at her house, and she was like, "That was really good. Like that was technically really good." She's like, "But I didn't feel it."
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, and honestly, it was like a throwaway song too. It was not a song I normally play. I really think it was like a Pat Benatar song or something. But I was just like, we would just try the hard, like songs that we didn't think we could do well and try it, and really push ourselves. And that was the first time that it hit me that I was just like, oh yeah, like I could connect to it, but it was important for me to make sure that I was always giving that to the audience. And I don't know how to do it any other way now. And so that's why I do what I do is that connection, that performing.
There's a really interesting thing that that you touched on right there. That a couple people have come onto the podcast and talked about that. One of the most important things that they've found for success and for getting better is like an actual ability to self-critique, and that a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people haven't been trained that. Like I my wife and I have very different styles. I grew up with my mom, who's one of those. My mom's a psychologist, and she was always like, "You're doing a great job." And it's like, I'm proud of you. And it's like, even if I was failing, and my mom would be like, "You're a hero in my book." I'm like, "Thanks, Mom. It was not that great, but I love you for that." But my wife came up. She when our daughter will sing, my wife will be very. She has a high standard. She'll look at my daughter and she says, "That was good. You can do better. You can try better. Let's do it again." And it was one of those things because I never realized that some people didn't have that inherent self-critiquing until American Idol came out. And one of the kind of the when people were auditioning, and you could see some people didn't understand that they weren't there, that they weren't hitting that. Yeah. And it was sad. But as a collective, we were like, whoa, that was tough to watch. But the thing is what was fascinating to me was that there was at some point in time, that person could have benefited from someone going, "You can refine that. You can get better. That was not bad, but you can be better." And I think that that's a really important thing. Now, did you find that it was easy to self-critique, or did you need help?
Yeah, no. I mean, I was a weirdo, probably.
Me too.
Problems here. Really, my childhood looked like, I lived in the downstairs part of my dad's house in Virginia, and he had kind of built me this, like, it had my TV up top and my computer on the bottom, like all on the same wall. It was really cool for a teenager. And
that's awesome.
My mom gave me her old Mackie board, and my dad bought me my first acoustic electric guitar, and that was it. I just literally spent all my time, not to like practice, like just like genuinely, this is what I just can't stop. I would just look up chords. I taught myself everything. I taught myself how to play guitar. I would listen to the original artists. I would sing with them. I would record myself singing that version.
That's awesome.
I would listen to it back and see, where's that breath control and whatever. And I don't know what that was, but even from a young age, it was very clear to me that it's like, okay, like Martina McBride has got, she's opening, I could just feel it, she's opening her soft palate back here. And,
awesome.
She's taking a breath here. And it was just something that was always so visual, something so technically a part of me as even a kid, you know what I mean? That's all I did. And so I had a recorder, and I would record myself. And,
That's awesome.
I mean, my parents were, looking back, it's probably a little extreme, but, I had a social life, but surprisingly, but, it's just really, that's even till to this day. Like if I've got downtime and it's just me in my house, I'm going to grab a guitar and see if I can't just start playing a song without looking it up, you know what I mean? Just stuff like that.
That's
so
awesome.
There's this curiosity to forever learn and grow within my vocally for me, even today. I've never had professional voice training, but it's something that I'm thinking about doing. I have a large range, but I'm thinking, what would happen if I actually, I grew up poor, so we were in the country, so we didn't have special classes, or, you didn't have extracurriculars outside of what, the county was offering you, and so, that's another thing that's cool about being in a larger city is I now have this just legitimate opportunity. Like there's literally more things to do and people to know and learn from. So that's exciting too.
I'm with you. I grew up out in the countryside, and there wasn't the option. You know, I sang in the church choir, and that's what you had. And, you know, and piano lessons from the pastor's wife. That was like, that was our option, you know? But the fun thing is like, one of the cool things that you touched on is like, as well now, the access, the information is so much, there's so much more, you know, and with the internet and things like that, which is really cool. I think that it's cool too, that you talk about how it's really interesting that people that are willing to continuously try to refine and to try to kind of building that craft, because like, you know, I am actually really looking at going back to Nashville next summer and doing some additional training to become a better audio engineer. I've been working as a film producer, director, doing a lot of music videos and branded videos. But you know, as through COVID, as I was the one, we set up a home studio, and I've been the one capturing my wife's vocals for all of our songs. And I was like, I'm not a great mix engineer, but I love being the vocal producer. I love being the person there who's sitting and helping capture vocals. I really enjoy it because
Awesome.
It's this beautiful thing, because like, you know, I found that like, it's similar to directing movies too, because you're the person kind of providing that safe space. You kind of really have this responsibility to assist the artist to kind of create the space that they can go in and succeed. I love that. But my point being, to do that well, I need to learn more. And so there was like, I'm looking at this willingness to like, hey, you know, why not go back and study with a bunch of 20-year-olds? Why, you know, it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I, you know, and I'm the same way, you know, with Quarantine, Sweet Virginia, that song, you know, I was made in my at-home recording studio, and I was like playing the bass and the shakers and the harmonies and all this stuff, and you know, just doing that all myself, and then mixing it, and then you know, and then I got as far as I felt like I could, and then bouncing it off a few other ears, you know. But I understand. I really love the process of physical recording, and I think that's the thing is like a lot of folks, like we always focus on like my like backstory and all of that. Obviously that makes me who I am as an artist, but you know, they just kind of assume that it stops there. Like, okay, and I like to sing. It's like, no, like I love making albums. Like I don't know what I love. I don't know. I love performing first and foremost. I think I would do that for free.
Right.
I love emotional connection. It's the transcendence of feeling and emotion. And so if I can sing a song and either them interpret it in the way that I do, or in another way that touches them, you know, I've got chills. I mean, and that's what happens most all the time, which is really badass. And that's sacred to me.
Yeah.
So that's my goal when I'm on stage, is to say, okay, they're here for this purpose. I'm here for this purpose. Work together, nothing else. You know, and no matter what the song is, let me portray that emotion in this moment, almost theatrically. You know what I mean? And
no, for sure. Totally theatrically.
I just love that. It's like a soul massage is what that feels like for me as an artist. And so when I have the opportunity to then create and make that and record that in that space, particularly with somebody like Chance McCoy, who, you know, has worked with my heroes, you know, Avett Brothers, Brady Carlisle, like, you know, and, you know, Devil Makes Three, all these guys. And to know that like and that's why I chose him, because when he said, he was like, we're going to make this album until it's something we're both proud of. And when I heard that, I was like, that's the partner that I'm looking for, right? Like there's a few other studios that were like wanting to help me out of Nashville, and which I'm so grateful for that and for their opportunity. I hope to work with them in the future. But there was this need when I made my first studio album, demo album, my solo album, it was out March of 2020, which was perfect timing. I had one of my best friends produce my album, and he's actually normally does rap, and like he's a DJ too. But we have this like this connection that there's a partnership, And I
That's
learned so
awesome.
much about myself in that process that I was really yearning for that again in this first big studio full band album, to say, you know, authenticity is important to me. And, you know, I didn't want to just have a demo to have a demo. And
Yeah.
so when I, you know, or an album to have an album. And so when Chance said that, I was like, and I believed him, you know what I mean? And he's just really genuinely, I'm stoked. There's no way that this album, how cool is that, right? Like I might be having to raise 12 grand right now, but how cool is it that no matter what, I'll have an album that I'm proud of at the end of this. And, so anyway, I know that was a ramble, but I love
rambles are awesome.
The album making process, the performing, you know, honestly, it's just what I do naturally. It's like, as I'm not even trying, it's like, that's like what I would like to do in my free time, you know? So, it's really cool.
No, and I think two things you touched on there. One is I love that transcendence type of a concept. And, I had a really awesome guy, Bill DeLuigi. He's a songwriter from Nashville, and he came on my podcast. And after he came on, we started chatting, and I was like, if you needed help with anything, and he's like, awesome, you too. And he sent me back this song that he wrote, and I heard it. I just started crying. Like, it was so touching. He's like, I would love it if you and your wife would sing this. And it was just like, it struck. He's a person who did not live near me, did not grow up near me, did not understand my life, but wrote a song that was like, that understood my soul, that understood my journey. And I was just like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like, how can we are on opposite side of the world, people, but yet we can touch other people through this music. We can touch people through this, because music is transcendent. It is this thing that when this person's singing on stage, these people in the audience are almost being touched on as if magically by this story, this energy, you know?
You know, I think that that's really the pin drop moment, right? It's like everyone, you know, we always talk about the pin drop moment, or like, you know, when I start to sing and the room gets really, really quiet.
Yes.
And it's not, I don't love that moment because it's like, oh, they're listening. I love that moment because, oh, I'm feeling the connection. You know what I mean? Like we're locked in now. And, you know, as you get through like that midway through to your set, when now there's like, they're not afraid to be clapping. They're not afraid to be dancing. They're not afraid to be wooting and hollering, you know, and really interacting. I honestly, like, I probably have more of a comedian style sometimes on stage. I love interacting with the crowd so much that if I can see you or if I hear you, like, I'll call you out and like bring you in a part of it, you know, in a way that doesn't ruin your night, you know, but, yeah, it's that, man, that's it for me. You know, that's what I love to do. And so, you know, when you were saying that about that song, normally I know what I'm portraying to folks, and normally it lands around the same, right? Like, okay, this song is this, and I feel this way. But the last song that I wrote actually was the flip side to Sweet Virginia, about Virginia, and it is going to be on my new album. It's called Antebellum Town.
Nice.
And it was about really me, just growing up in the capital of the Confederacy and really what that looked like, particularly during the 2020 election. I moved even further out in the country from Harrisonburg, and at that time, and so like my car had been keyed because I, you know, had support stickers on it that, and then, you know, Confederate flags and all this stuff. And the insurgence of the Capitol happened, and it was like an hour and a half from my house in January. And I'm just like seeing all these.
On my birthday.
Damn. Yeah. That sucks. Yeah. I'm like right near DC, like an hour and a half from DC. And I'm just thinking like, it has this moment where I think it's like, as a queer person, as a woman, as just somebody like, you know, it was just this moment where I'm like, oh, I'm tired of being the exception. Like these people that are down there are like my neighbors, and like these people that, you know what I mean? And people that book me and like, and all of these things. And, you know, there might be people that book me, you know what I mean? And so it's just to see the folks that like say that they love you and then go and like be a part of something that directly harms you was really difficult. And also to be in an area where I'm, you know, can't really feel like I can fully express myself as a, you know, to a queer person, like hold my partner's hand walking down the street or whatever, you know? And, so the combination of that and quarantine and all, I really just had a moment of anger, of just like, fuck you. Sorry, forget you guys. Like,
Oh, it's okay. Speak your truth.
Yeah, like, forget you guys. Not like my hometown or the people of it,
No,
but
no,
the
no.
system,
Yeah.
the area. And so it was just this like me butting heads fundamentally with where I grew up for so long. And that day was the tip of the iceberg for me. And so I wrote my first angry song about Virginia. And quite honestly, I would not normally, or growing up, I wouldn't have the guts to sing it in public. But,
Yeah.
Really the whole point of that song is, straight up, like, I'm taking my money, my bills, my talents, I'm going elsewhere. I'd rather start over than, like, keep your fool's gold. You know what I'm saying? Like, you no longer get to, I'm not a part of this anymore. And it's kind of fun. It's kind of an aggressive song, but catchy. And the reason why, the point of this long-winded story is that I started playing that out in Colorado, and so I grew up. Confederate flags and like this thing was. My entire life there was my school had a huge scandal. Just always a thing, like Civil War battlegrounds everywhere that people just love. It's just terrible. And so, but when I go to Colorado, nobody really. I don't realize how small that system is outside of that area, right? Like, people are, I've never even seen that. You know what I mean? And that's it's pretty crazy. And so I'm playing this on stage, and I just say, hey, this is a little bit of spiel of what this is about, and I play it, and it has happened 3 times now where after I've played that song, I've received an email like days later afterward from a queer person saying, hey, I want you to know that. I'm from whatever, such and such, but that song really, really resonated with me. And my dad actually hasn't understood why I moved from the area that we were, and we haven't, been communicating very well. And he was actually at the show visiting me tonight, and so now we have common ground. Like,
that's awesome.
And like, yeah, like, that's and so awesome. It's like, and like every time it's been so weird. It has nothing to do with suppression necessarily in regard to like queer people or myself or whatever. It's just this like, get me out of here feeling that I think in turn has accidentally just reached other queer people and other people that aren't, you know what I mean? But particularly those stories that it doesn't happen that, I write a song about apples and they're telling me like, hey, this really, made me think of oranges in a way that really helped me. You know what I'm saying? And that was really cool. It even shows is like music's bigger than me and you and whatever, it's like this song is about something completely different, but it is exactly the words that a lot of folks that don't feel like they've had a voice want to say to the folks that we're supposed to love them and support them growing up.
And I think that you hit on something like maybe people aren't able to like, there are at times, let me see how to say this. We always can't necessarily understand each other's like experiences. And this is something that I noticed living in Vietnam because, like, let me give an example. Right now, we have about 4 feet of water out on the street. Like, wow. It's super flooded. Well, why? It's rainy season and it's high tide. And this happens, And so while people in one part of the world have their problems, people in other parts of the world have different problems.
Right.
And one of the points being, though, is that the challenge comes is that sometimes we don't understand each other's problems, but we can by hearing about it, and so like a song like that is so important for someone. It is so important for the queer community, the LGBTQ community, but it's also important for the people that are outside that community so that they can find that experience, look at that experience, and gain empathy. Because by gaining empathy, you're able to go, wow, now I'm starting to get it.
And I think that's what those folks' message were to me primarily. It was like, thanks for saying what I've been like kind of trying to say in a way that like these folks couldn't help but enjoy. And like it started a conversation. And like, so how cool is that, you know?
Yes.
And obviously
That's it.
I want to put it out immediately, you know, but, and just see what happens. But and it's crazy since I already had my songs written, since I agreed to do it with Chance, it's got me, you know, buzzing. Like I can write better than this. I can write better than this. And, I'm not a traditional songwriter in the sense that I have a hard time just sitting down and writing. I do a lot more of a like record while improvising. Nice. Kind of thing. And then recording, listening to it back and writing it down and critiquing and, and changing words. And it's just been flowing out of me. Like I wrote one of the first songs on the piano, this cool. past. Yeah. I'm normally strictly kind of guitar just because I'm most familiar with that in regard to writing, but, yeah, it's just flowing out of me. And I can't wait to see if there's what other experiences like the one from Antebellum Town are waiting from these other tracks. You know what I'm saying? It's just, that's it. I get so giddy. I just want people to hear it. You know, that's literally like, why do I do it? I just want you to hear it. I don't know why, but I really love that you hear it and that I hear it and we can hear it together. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm at this point where, you know, all my life I also was doing like what I should be doing. So like going to college and getting like a marketing degree and like getting a full-time job and trying to have a good resume and like maneuver the corporate America and all while simultaneously like being authentically me and like pursuing music as hard as I possibly can. But that's another thing that Colorado has allowed me is that distance between my family and everything is it's allowed me to be self-centered in a way to pursue music in a way that I have never been able to before, being so close to your hometown. And I would say that's the big thing is, you know, you are something to everyone, right? When you live somewhere for 20 years, you have and there are many versions of you. I mean, everyone knows me from my whole 20 years. Yes. That sucks, you know? And, you know, I feel like, thank God, like if I waited a day longer to move, it would have been too late. And not because I like loathe or hate my hometown, but because of how I was straddling two lives. I could have never obtained what I am attaining now, and I don't even know what it is that I want to obtain. I don't have an end goal, just that like I want to keep doing this.
But you knew that it was time, and you knew it was the right space. That's where I'm at.
It was like this. It was this boiling, right? Yes. Like it was just like, it's time, it's going, and now is the time. And so to be so scared and to have absolutely no idea. It's like, I could leave and no one give a shit about my music ever again. Right. And then like, oh crap, you know, that fear of like having to go back, but then to leave and then, you know, have it really just be exactly what you needed is just such a blessing, I think. And that's what I keep coming down to is those straddling the two lives. Like you have to let go of the old to embrace the new.
And not to throw out their cliche sports quotes, but I love that Michael Jordan quote. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. You know what I mean? Yeah. And to me, I think that's so, I often wonder how many Da Vinci's, how many, you know, great artists, musicians, actors, singers didn't get there because there was just either A, not the opportunity, or B, there wasn't the support, which brings me back to what you were talking about with your new album and having these amazing people. And like when you were told like, we're going to make this awesome, you know, it's going to be something we both love. That's awesome, you know, and it's even more awesome that it's a hero of yours saying that, you know, it's like, wow.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's nuts. I don't know. I think I would say to all of that, like what's on my mind is this like fundamental shift that's had in my heart since like this past year in regard to my artistry. It was almost like okay, yeah, I hear everyone's telling me that I should just do this and that, you know what I mean? And I believe them, I guess. That, you know, I should pursue music, and I do want to pursue music, but I was afraid to fail. Yeah. And so it was one of those things where, I mean, eventually, I looked around. I mean, honestly, quarantine really opened up, you know, right? Like, I mean, the world stopped. I had stopped performing. I stopped everything. And I looked around and I was just like, oh, none of this is fulfilling. you know, and I got depressed because I'm like, oh, maybe it's too late for me. You know, I'm 28. You know, I guess I'll just continue on my marketing career. And you know, and I thought, you know, they're knocking on the door and they're knocking on the door and they're knocking on the door. Why can't I?
Yes.
You know, and so
Yes.
that's literally the only shift that I've had was like I was standing at the Rhythm and Blues Festival or Rhythm and Roots Festival out in Missouri, which is in like Brandi Carlile, Sheryl Crow, Rising Appalachia, like just a lot of big Americana. It was all women lineup, you know, and I'm sitting there and I'm listening to these bands that were performing in the day. And I was just like, thought to myself, like, I'm like, the only difference between me and them is they got booked for this. Now, it's not entirely true because they have like a backing band and all, but like I can get a backing band, right? Like that.
Yes.
It's that thing. It's like, all I need is to make an album and find folks that would like to play my music with me. And that's it. And so I think there was that thing of like, oh, you are like, I don't know. The word I don't know means opportunity, not I don't know, therefore I'm stuck. And so this whole thing of like, I don't know, like me and Chance are gonna make this album. I don't know, but I feel like with this new outlook of saying, I'm just going to ask.
Yes.
Like, so I just emailed freaking Chance McCoy. I just asked him. I said, hey, here's my song. Do you want to work with me? You know what I mean? The same with larger venues. I just ask. So like my 1 year goal in Denver, I had already played those venues in the first 2 months, 3 months. And so
I love that.
It's just a mind shift. It's just a mind shift.
And, and that's the problem with so many people. Like, and I'm not judging, and I'm not saying that in judgment, but people are afraid to ask. And, because I think we're so terrified of some people saying no, but like, it's just the fear of rejection. But the reality is maybe they'll say yes. Maybe, my wife once talked about that. Like, she was this famous singer, and, I was like, you must be having guys ask you out all the time. And she's like, actually, no. Like, actually, it wasn't like there were a lot of people, hitting on her or asking her out to dinner and such, because essentially people were like, you're well known and, everyone's going to be. And she was actually pointed out that like, we're great for each other because she actually is kind of a homebody, and it was like lonely. And I'm kind of the outgoing, like, let's go out and meet people. And so it's this nice balance. Yeah. But for me, I always have respected people who just said, why not ask? Why not ask?
Yeah.
Because you never know.
I have to give credit, I think, where credit's due in that. So most of when I was playing with my band, everybody would always be like, you sound like so-and-so, you sound like so-and-so. Then it's like, I get like Janis Joplin, Stevie Nicks, because I do a lot of like growling and stuff on live sets. And then, but a few times people are like, you really need to check out Brandi Carlile. I was like, okay, cool. Yeah. And I was just like playing music so much and like young and like, just wasn't really listening to that much new music. And I just assumed that it was somebody that I just hadn't heard from the past.
Yeah. And
over quarantine, I listened to her album, By the Way I Forgive You, because somebody in my community had asked me to cover the story for them. And I listened to that album, and then I Googled her, and I realized that she was gay and married and Americana and singer-songwriter and like genre bending and I was just like, holy shit. Like
right?
The first time in my life, I was like, I exist. Like someone like me exists, because my whole life it was, my voice was phenomenal, but it was different than radio, commercial, and all these things. And being somebody that is gay in the country space is not easy traditionally either. And so country Americana space. And so really I dove in, right? And these are like these are songs that, like you were saying, like that touch my soul, that I wish I wrote, right? Like, and, so what happened was, on my move across the country, she had just come out with her memoir, Broken Horses, and that's her life story. And so I listened to it on audiobook. She had songs accompanying each chapter. Even if you don't know Brandi Carlile, which I didn't at the time very well, it's just a phenomenal book. I mean, really, it's It's just phenomenal.
I'm gonna find
and it's
it.
about
I'm gonna find it.
yeah, it's called Broken Horses. It's about her and her musical journey and her childhood and kind of where she's the scrappiness and which she's grown up and her relationship with the twins and her religion and all, but also like simultaneously, you know, Elton John is entering and Joni Mitchell and all these, you know, people. But the takeaway from that book was there's a lot of parallels between like Brandi Carlile and I's journey thus far, interestingly enough, like even down to like childhood stuff. And so I was really like enthralled when I was listening to this book and thinking like this had to be a on purpose kind of thing. And, you know, I kept hearing repeatedly from her in one way or another, like, yeah, I was nuts. I essentially just like would not stop emailing them until they email me back. Or like, you know, I wanted, you know, so-and-so to direct my music video. So I just sent her fan mail for like 4 months or whatever, you know? And,
that's awesome.
And she was just so unapologetically human that I was like, oh, okay. So like, I can just be like, if Brandy's like just like Brandy emailing Elton, then like, why can't I just be Amy emailing this talent buyer? And like it was that fundamental shift, you know. And there's another line in that book that really has put me into my new season. She said something about are you waiting to sing while learning to listen or something like that instead of learning to listen? And yeah, it's something like that. And it just hit me in that moment of just like all of these times, not maybe literally, but metaphorically, where I've just kind of bulldozed a situation, you know, made it happen, like a bulldoze that situation and to make it happen. And I'm waiting to sing rather than learning to listen. That like that whole doing versus being energy and like, you know, let me do 1,000 things and make sure one sticks rather than like spending time to find out that one solution. And like, so, you know, I was just like, shit, yeah, I need to listen. Who am I to be opening my mouth so much? I need to listen. And so yeah, that book, you know, her attitude to just see that, like, you know, she just asked.
Yeah.
So anytime I get like really, anytime I get in my head about it and all, I'm just like, Brandi Carlile just asked, why not? You know, it's, you know, it's something small, but you never know. And I think that's really cool. But, you know, it's so important to have these conversations in these books because, I mean, this is just my story of like a couple of pages out of Brandi Carlile, you know, that it's sticking out to me that changed my life as a musician, as a female artist in the space. It's a mind shift. Just that you're allowed to ask, like you're worthy of that. You're allowed. Nobody's stopping you. And that's crazy.
That was something that I see. And I think that's something that's just programmed into us. Like, because I watch with my daughter, and my daughter, there was this really interesting thing the other day. And she stood up and she ran across the room, grabbed the air conditioning remote and turned off the air conditioner. My wife and I looked at her like, what are you doing? You're 5, you know? It's like, and she looked at us and she's like, I'm very cold. I want to turn off the air conditioner. And we were just like, nice. Like,
right. Boundaries.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah.
Wow. That's phenomenal. And she looked at us like she was going to get in trouble. And we were like, no, you will never get in trouble if you ask for something that you need. Like, we respect that. I was like, I'm happy right now. The fact that you said that you saw it, and she's like, my head feels cold. It's too cold for me, Daddy. And I was just like, okay. Cool. It was like one of those moments, but like I think that so often I remember at school when I would ask for something that I needed and I was told, no, sit down.
Yep.
You know,
I was going to say, I think it's a fundamental shift, I think, within like our society and generationally, particularly, you know, I don't have a child, but I have a nephew who I adore and he is 6 and same thing. And that's what gives me the hope. Like people like my nephew, people like your daughters, that they're growing up with this sort of empathy and this sort of self-awareness and intactness. And I don't know if that's because maybe they're being born into a world of internet and social media and information, or, you know what I mean? But they're so, I had to learn that. I'm still learning that.
Same.
That like, hey, I'm cold, but like, and I'm allowed to say that, even if there's other people in the room. Like, what is this like, this sacrificial, like, I don't want to inconvenience, therefore I'm just going to be cold. When like, I could just be like, hey, I'm cold. And everyone's like, oh yeah, me too, or whatever. You know what I mean? But it's like it's a silly, it's a small metaphor, but that's exactly it. Right. It's like, how often do you want to turn the AC off, or like, ask to adjust the temperature and you don't, and
right.
like, and then you've been freezing for like the last 10 years for no reason.
But that's our whole lives. People will be stuck in a space because they are unsure about what the other side might look like. And they're also afraid that they're going to get smacked in the middle of the transition, And maybe you do. Maybe you take a couple licks, but it's worth it. It's worth moving through to the other side,
Yeah, and I'm going through a lot of transition right now with myself. Like myself, I moved out here with a partner that is no longer in the picture, and which is fine. Obviously, wish them the best and everything, but it's that same thing, right? It's that fear of, and that's the only way that I can. That's the only way that I can really find hope in moving forward in these moments of transition and difficulty, and like. I don't know. Like, I don't know about my job right now. I don't know about my relationship right now. I don't know about, I don't know about a lot of things right now. And so you would think that would mean, wow, Amy is like, we're worried about her, and then that at one point I would be in a bad spot. But for some reason, there's just so much hope and pieces and opportunity there's laying right here in front of me that, you have to trust the process to say like, again, like you don't want to get too cliche, but you have to just ride that momentum and realize that like you are but a small part of this big, this chasm, and and I'm allowed to live my truth, and I want my partner to live their truth. And if that doesn't mean if that means that like oops, this isn't it's not going to work, then like I think it takes an acceptance, it takes a
courage to
it takes a courage, and it takes enough. You have to love yourself enough, and I'm just preaching to the choir because I'm learning all of this now, but it's that like, okay, yeah, like you're not happy, but like I'm not happy too, and that's I'm allowed to say that, right? And that was me turning off the air conditioner, right, in a way, right, like and and not just, I'm not talking about explicitly in my relationship, but just in anything, right? To just be able to advocate for yourself, to just say like, actually, this isn't working for me anymore. Like, I'm going to put a hard stop on this, or, I'm not comfortable with this. And I just was something that I didn't grow up with. It was like, mind your P's and Q's.
Yeah.
And be respectful and tolerate what you can, like that was the 90s, I guess, or whatever, it's just like
grin and bear it.
Yeah.
Hello, are you gonna come say hi? Look, you were being naughty, huh? My wife let our puppy in, so that means he was being a naughty. Hi.
Oh, he's so cute. My cats have been like destroying the house.
I saw something bound around behind you. I was like,
yeah, they're attacking each other.
It was one of the first podcasts I did. My friend had set up in this room, and her roommate needed to go to the bathroom, and I saw this person crawling past in the background, and I was like, that's awesome.
Okay, good. They win. Yeah, I'm not worried about that.
Don't worry about the cats. Now, if you could give some advice to your younger self, what type of advice would you give your younger self?
Oh God. It depends on what this advice is about. I got a lot of advice for younger me. And I'm sure I'll watch this podcast and even or listen to this podcast in 2 months and be like, shut up. You don't even know what you're talking about. Because I guess that's my acceptance, is I am forever learning. Right. And I love it. And, so I guess, it's okay that not everything falls on your shoulders. You don't have to save everyone. Nice. And you don't have to keep it together for the, you don't have to be last. Loving doesn't mean abandoning yourself. That's what I would say.
I love that. It goes back to what we were talking about. It's okay to turn off the air conditioner. It's okay to
Okay. Yeah. And in every facet, that the job that's toxic, whatever, it's okay to have a problem with it. It's like, really, it's okay to not want to be treated that way or whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
No, for
and
sure.
it's that I think I needed somebody to tell me, I mean, and I just figured it out, but I almost need somebody to just look at me and say that, like, hey, it's normal to, have standards and needs and not this. I was just this like microcosm of giving as a child, like, how can I help here? How can I help here? All my life, my relationships, my everything, and I realized, I'm waking up and I have these opportunities in front of me, and this is like the first day of the rest of my life. Right. I feel like, especially with this chance thing, it's like, oh, cool. Like, this is, every time I feel like I've made it the next time I do the next big thing. Right. And, and so I'm like, this is it. And for the first time I'm going, I'm alone for the first time in a long time. I'm in a new place for the first time in a long time. And now I get to figure out what I like to do. Right. And like who I like to, and what I write about. And so it's just this incredible time of like, unlearning and learning while shedding, while building resilience. It's just, I'm in a really, really cool place in my life, I feel like, where there's just a lot of ruminating.
That's a good point too. Like sometimes we don't have the answers. Quite often we don't have the answers, but you can still embrace it where you're at and find the joy in that moment. And then just dive into whatever.
It's opportunity. Yeah. Right? Yeah, it's opportunity. So,
and that's where I'm standing. Like I'm in a similar space. I'm looking at this. Like, I feel like a chapter for me living here in Southeast Asia is kind of finishing up, and I do not have the answers. I have very few, but I know that every time I take steps, I tend to land on my feet, and sometimes you just got to take a step and just see where you end up. But you ever been on one of those big water slides? Yes. And you're standing there and there's this tube in front of you and you can't kind of see where it goes, but you're sitting there and there's that moment where you're like, oh man, are we going to do this? Yeah. And then you go and you have the time of your life, but you gotta, there's always that trepidation, that worry before you jump in.
Yeah. And I think that's something too that like I heard in what you were saying that I've trying to give myself a little more credit for, and like even other people in my life, is that like the ability that you have in that moment to say, I don't know what's next.
Yeah.
So like that's another fundamental thing that I think that would have helped me a lot, ease my anxiety a lot through my life. And that like that internal, like, what do I do? What's my next move? What if, the worry is to just say like, it takes a type of work and growth to realize, to be able to say, I don't know. I don't know. And in my entire life, I feel like there was a way, even just with myself, I had to feel like I knew the way.
Yeah.
Like this way, this is the next best thing. Like I got it. And that was kind of instilled with me because, my dad's a hard worker and like, he had his own business. And so it was always like, make it happen was our family motto. And now it's like, that's the last thing I ever want to do is make something happen. But, I understand that work ethic, but at the same time, I think I internalized that to say, you can't not know, you've got to know what's coming. And that really like led me to just making a lot of like definitive decisions that, you know what I mean? Like I know I need to do this next. Now it's time to buy a house. Now it's time to make this much money. Now it's time to do this. Now it's time. And it was just like, God, I was lying to myself. I don't know where I'm going. And this isn't fun that way anyway. Like, let's just like chill out, and those are the two fundamental shifts. I feel like it's just like asking for what I say, speaking my truth.
Yeah.
Asking for what I want or need. And then just recognizing that like, I don't know anything. and that's fine. That's great. It's great. I know this much. and there's like this much that I know I don't know, and then there's like this much that I don't know that I don't know.
There's a great line, and I studied Eastern philosophy. That was in university. And so there was this one line in Taoism, and Taoism is just a philosophy of life from ancient China. And there was this great poem that said, the wise man, or the fool thinks he knows everything. The wise man knows that he knows nothing.
Right. Yeah. I think I've heard that now that you say it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
true.
I have, and that's some song content there. I don't know which one of us should jump on that first, but yeah, I've been living a fool.
Do it at the same time. There we go.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Well, you take first verse. I'll take second.
All right, sounds good to me.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think it's true. Exactly. You're spot on.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I want to say I really have appreciated this conversation, and I look forward to having you come back on again sometime if you're open to that.
Yeah, I would love it. I feel like I could talk to you all day. So I really appreciate the space and you hearing me out and listening, and I'm looking forward to seeing the episode.